If you've endured this for a long time, you're a very rare dark chosen one. There's a kind of suffering that doesn't make sense to the world. It lingers. It repeats. It shows up in cycles, sometimes disguised in the faces of different people, sometimes disguised as failure, loss, silence. It's not dramatic enough to gather sympathy, but it's deep enough to slowly hollow you out. And if you've been living with that kind of pain, if you've been enduring it longer than you can explain, longer than anyone around you seems to understand, then you need to know something that most people will never hear. You're not cursed, you're not broken, you're not weak. You're one of the rare ones. You're one of the dark chosen ones. And everything you've endured was not chaotic, it was engineered, spiritually scripted, down to the finest detail, because your soul signed up for something most people never would have the courage to accept. From the outside, your life might look like a series of unfortunate events. Maybe you've been stuck in cycles you can't seem to break. Maybe you've given your heart to people who only reflected your wounds back to you. Maybe you've done the spiritual work, read the books, sat in silence, tried to raise your vibration, and still, the suffering returns, like some hidden contract you didn't know you signed. But what if I told you you did sign it? What if, before you even came into this life, you agreed to take on a path that would force you to awaken through darkness, not light? What if your soul was so ancient, so brave, so powerfully built, that it chose the hardest road not to be punished, but to be forged?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
This is the journey of the dark chosen one. It's not glamorous. It's not immediately rewarding. It won't make sense to your family, your friends, or even to the version of yourself who still wants to live a normal life. Because normal isn't an option for you. You've probably already tried that path. You've probably already tried to blend in, to go along with the program, to chase the same dreams as everyone else, only to feel more lost, more disconnected, more wrong. That's because your blueprint is different. You didn't come here to fit in. You came here to disrupt, to break generational curses, to dissolve illusions, to walk into the underworld of your own psyche and come back with the kind of wisdom that can't be taught, only earned. And let's be honest, the journey is brutal. It's lonely. It strips you bare. You start to question everything: your faith, your worth, your sanity. You look around and wonder why everyone else seems to be doing fine, while you feel like you're drowning in emotional weight with no clear reason. But that's part of the initiation. You see, the dark chosen ones are not awakened in temples. They are awakened in the chaos. They don't meet their higher self in moments of peace. They meet it in the ruins of their own breakdown. And that breakdown is sacred. Because when everything you thought you were collapses, what's left is truth. Not the truth people tell you to believe. The truth you remember in your bones. It's not a coincidence that you've always felt different. That you've always sensed something deeper going on beneath the surface. That certain places, people, and even words carry an energetic charge you can't explain. You've been tuned differently. You've been encoded with something ancient. And that's why the suffering doesn't stop, because you haven't yet unlocked the power that suffering was designed to awaken. You keep thinking the pain is a punishment, but the pain is a pressure point. It's drilling into the part of you that still thinks you're powerless. It's pushing you to remember. Remember what? That you are not your trauma, that you are not your story, that you are not even your suffering. You are the witness of it all. And the moment you stop identifying with the pain and begin witnessing it, everything begins to change. Because now you're not just reacting, you're reclaiming. You're stepping into your soul's authority. And that's when the script flips. That's when the spiritual energy hidden in your darkest moments begins to rise like fire through your spine. That's when the real transformation begins, not the surface level healing, but the deep soul alchemy that turns wounds into wisdom. But let me ask you something, and I want you to sit with this deeply. What if your suffering has been the very thing that's been trying to awaken you? What if the universe isn't punishing you, it's preparing you? Preparing you to become the kind of person who doesn't just survive life, but transforms it. What if the weight you've been carrying isn't yours alone, but ancestral? What if your soul volunteered to be the one who breaks the cycle, even if it meant bleeding for it? You don't need to wait for external proof. You don't need someone to come save you. You are the proof. You are the one. And deep down, some part of you already knows this. That's why you're still standing. That's why no matter how hard it gets, some force inside you refuses to give up. That force is not weakness. It's not desperation. It's a whisper from your soul, keep going. There's something here for you. This isn't the end. This is the becoming. You are not here to be normal. You are not here to be liked. You are here to wake the world up, starting with yourself. And that awakening begins when you stop asking why it's so hard and start asking what it's teaching, what it's revealing, what it's activating inside of you that couldn't be reached any other way. You are not behind. You are precisely where you need to be. Because this long, silent, agonizing stretch of your life is the sacred forge, and you are being shaped into something the world desperately needs. You are not alone. You are not broken. You are not too late. You are ancient. You are chosen. You are rising. The blueprint of shadows, why your soul chose the hardest path on purpose. If you've ever looked at your life and asked, why me? Not just once, but again and again, in those quiet, exhausted moments when nothing makes sense, it's time you heard the deeper truth. The answer isn't punishment. It's not random. And it's not because you're weaker than others. In fact, it's the opposite. The reason your path has been so dark, so heavy, so relentlessly challenging is because your soul, before you were even born into this body, chose it carefully, intentionally, and with full awareness of what it would cost. You didn't come here for ease. You came here for evolution. You came here to carry light into places where light doesn't exist. You came here to remember who you are in a world designed to make you forget. That's not a small mission, it's cosmic. And to fulfill it, you had to be shaped in ways most people will never understand. You had to be dropped into the density, into the trauma, into the pain, because only in those depths would the codes you carry begin to activate. That's the blueprint of a dark, chosen one. Your suffering is not just a side effect of life, it is the sacred trigger for your awakening. But let's be honest. The human part of you didn't ask for this. The child version of you didn't raise their hand and say, yes, I'll take abandonment. Yes, I'll take betrayal. Yes, I'll carry the ancestral grief of 7 generations. The human part of you wanted love, safety, belonging. And so when life gave you the opposite, it felt cruel. It felt like rejection. But from the perspective of your soul, every single wound was part of the divine design, not to destroy you, but to expose you to the layers of strength, wisdom, and power you would never have found if everything had been easy. I think about it. When has ease ever forced you to grow? When has comfort ever broken the illusion that you were powerless? It's the pressure, the collapse, the heartbreak. That's where the soul starts to speak louder than the ego. That's where the masks fall off and the truth rises up. And the truth is this: you are far more powerful than you've ever been told. But power isn't given, it's remembered. And the remembering always begins in darkness. Your soul knew this. It knew that to become a guide for others lost in their own shadows, you would first have to walk through yours. Not once, but again and again. each time going deeper, each time peeling back another layer of illusion, each time discovering that the light you were searching for out there was actually buried inside you, waiting to be reclaimed. That's why the path has been so lonely, so misunderstood, because you weren't just healing for yourself, you were healing for the collective. You were breaking the chain. You were dismantling the systems of fear, shame, and silence that have kept humanity asleep for lifetimes. And yes, it's exhausting. Yes, there are days you'll want to quit, days you'll question everything. But even in those moments, some part of you knows, some part of you refuses to give up. That part is your soul. It remembers what your mind forgets. It remembers the contract, the sacred agreement to carry the hardest stories so you could rewrite them from the inside out. And you've already been doing it whether you realize it or not. Every time you chose truth over comfort. Every time you spoke when your voice was shaking. Every time you stayed with your pain instead of running from it. That was the work. That was the path. So let me ask you something, and don't answer with your mind, answer with your heart. What if everything you've lost was never a punishment, but a clearing? What if the people who walked away were never meant to stay because their energy couldn't match the frequency you were rising into? What if the pain you've spent years trying to escape was actually the very thing that's been sculpting you into who you were born to be? This life you're living, it's not a glitch in the system. It's a divine mission cloaked in chaos. And you're not failing, you're awakening. Slowly, painfully, beautifully, you are becoming the kind of person who doesn't just talk about light, but embodies it. And not the soft, fluffy, love and light version. The real kind. The light that knows its way through shadows. The light that holds space for brokenness without trying to fix it. The light that doesn't need to be seen to be powerful, because it is power. You didn't choose this path to be a martyr. You chose it to be a mirror for others who have forgotten their own strength. And that's why your story matters. That's why your scars are sacred. Because when you speak from your authentic place, when you share not the polished version of your healing, but the raw, messy, real version, you give others permission to do the same. You become the permission slip, the portal, the proof that darkness can be survived, transmuted, transcended. You are not here to be saved. You are here to save yourself. And in doing so, you light the way for thousands more. The sacred flame, how your pain becomes the power to awaken others. There's something powerful that happens when you stop trying to escape your pain and start listening to it. Like a flame that's been smoldering beneath the surface, your suffering begins to ignite something ancient inside you, a kind of sacred fire that no one else can see, but everyone can feel. It's not loud. It doesn't scream. It hums quietly, like a knowing deep in your bones. This is the sacred flame, and it only begins to burn when you've suffered enough to finally surrender, not in defeat, but in acceptance. Acceptance that your pain is not your enemy, it's your initiation. You see, every crack in your heart, every betrayal, every fall from grace was carving you open, not to destroy you, but to make space. Space for this flame. Space for the fire of consciousness to live in you, move through you, radiate from you. This fire is not fueled by happiness. It's fueled by truth. And the truth is, your darkness has never been a flaw. It's been the forge, the pressure, the purification. And now, as you begin to step into this awareness, something extraordinary happens. You become a beacon. Not because you've figured everything out, not because you're done healing, but because you've stopped pretending. You've stopped hiding. You've stopped apologizing for the depth of your feelings, the intensity of your thoughts, the weight of your presence. And that authenticity, It awakens people. It stirs something in them. It reminds them of who they are beneath the surface. That's your power. That's what makes you rare. You don't need to have a title. You don't need to be a guru or a teacher or a healer. You just need to be real. That's what people are starving for. Realness, depth, permission to feel it all. And you can only offer that because you've lived it. You've sat with your shame. You've walked through your rage. You've wept in the silence of your own isolation. And in doing so, you've become a container one that can hold the full spectrum of human experience without collapsing. That's what makes you magnetic. That's what makes people feel safe in your presence, even if they don't know why. You're not here to fix them. You're not here to save them. You're here to reflect them, to show them that their wounds don't make them weak. They make them real. But let's go deeper, because this sacred fire inside you, it doesn't just heal others. It transforms you. It burns away the layers of identity that were never yours to begin with, the roles you played to survive, the masks you wore to be accepted, the lies you believed to feel safe, all of it fuel for the fire. And as it burns, something wild and beautiful emerges from the ashes, your essence, unfiltered, unapologetic, unhidden. And when you begin to live from that place, you become unstoppable, not in the egoic sense, but in the spiritual sense. You're no longer driven by fear. You're driven by truth. And truth is contagious. When you walk into a room anchored in your truth, you don't have to say a word. People feel it. They either lean in or they recoil, and either way you stand firm, because you no longer need to be validated. You no longer need to be liked. You're here on assignment, and that assignment isn't about pleasing people. It's about waking them up. Your presence will trigger some. It will inspire others. But the ones who are ready, they will find you. They will see you, because the frequency you carry is their soul's signal. And when they feel it, they will remember. This is how your pain becomes power, not by being erased, but by being revered. You stop running from it. You stop resenting it. You start treating it like the sacred teacher it has always been. And in doing so, you reclaim the parts of yourself that were buried beneath the pain. Your creativity, your intuition, your sovereignty, your voice, the parts that were silenced when you were told to be small, to be quiet, to be normal. But you were never meant to be normal. You were meant to be free. So let me ask you something, and don't answer quickly. Let it sink in. What would your life look like if you stopped trying to become someone else and instead remembered who you already are beneath the pain? What if your soul has been waiting, not for you to escape your story, but to own it every chapter, every scar, every resurrection? What if your story is the medicine? You don't need to be perfect to lead. You just need to be honest. That's all the sacred flame requires, your willingness to burn through the lies and stand in your raw, radiant truth. And when you do, something miraculous happens. You stop surviving and you start serving. Not in the performative way. In the authentic, soul-driven, grounded way. You become the kind of leader this world desperately needs, not above others, but among them. Not preaching, but embodying. Not fixing, but holding space. You are not here to convince anyone of your worth. You're here to remember it, and in that remembrance, you light the way for others to do the same. That's what it means to carry the sacred flame. That's what it means to be a dark chosen one. The final unveiling, you were never meant to fit in. You were born to awaken the world. At some point in this path, usually after the breakdowns, after the nights where you begged for answers, after the silence that seemed to last lifetimes, you begin to see it. Not all at once, not in some grand cinematic moment, but in pieces, in glimmers, in the spaces between the chaos, You begin to realize that the reason you never fit in wasn't because something was wrong with you. It was because something different was alive in you, something ancient, something sacred. And the world you were born into didn't know what to do with it. So it labeled you, misunderstood you, tried to shrink you. And you believed it until now. Now, something deeper is stirring. A final unveiling. Not of something new, but of something that has always been there, waiting for you to see it clearly. You were never meant to fit in. You were never meant to mold yourself into a world built on fear, hierarchy, and illusion. You were meant to awaken it. And that mission, it required that you first walk through the very illusions you came to dismantle. It required that you feel what it's like to be disconnected, rejected, forgotten, so you could find your way back to the truth on your own. Because only then would your knowing be unshakable. Only then could you carry the kind of wisdom that isn't taught, it's embodied. You see, the old world doesn't need more followers. It doesn't need more noise. It needs frequency. It needs people who have remembered who they are in the deepest sense. People who don't just talk about truth but live it. People who can stand in the fire of their own becoming and not flinch. And that's you. That's what you've been becoming all along. Not someone who conforms, but someone who transforms. Not someone who escapes the world, but someone who remakes it from the inside out. That's why your life has felt like a contradiction. Why you felt pulled in two directions, one part of you longing to belong, to be accepted, to feel safe, and the other part of you whispering, there's more. You didn't come here to blend in. You came here to break the spell. That whisper, that's your soul, and it's getting louder, because the time has come. The world is changing. The structures are crumbling. And the ones who have walked through the darkness and found their light, they're being called, not to perform, not to preach, but to become fully, fiercely, unapologetically. You won't find instructions for this in a book. You won't find a step-by-step guide, because the path you're walking is coded in you. It's in your body, in your intuition, in your dreams. You don't have to figure it all out. You just have to listen, trust, follow the thread. And yes, it will still be hard. Yes, there will still be moments of doubt, but you'll move through them differently now. You'll recognize them not as signs to stop, but as invitations to go deeper. Because you know something now, your path isn't supposed to look like anyone else's. That's the point. You're not here to repeat. You're here to remember. And maybe the most radical act you can commit now is this: to stop hiding. To stop pretending that you're smaller than you are. To stop dimming your light just to make others comfortable. Because when you deny your truth, you deny the world of the medicine it needs. Your authenticity is not a luxury. It's a responsibility. There are people right now who are waiting to hear your voice, feel your presence, witness your becoming. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real, because you've faced yourself, because you've turned your wounds into wisdom and your silence into strength. So let me ask you one last time, what if your entire life has been preparing you for this moment? What if every shadow you've walked through was the training ground for the light you now carry? What if your pain wasn't just something to heal from, but something to lead with? Not in a way that centers your suffering, but in a way that transcends it, in a way that alchemizes it into power, into presence, into purpose. Where you don't need a grand platform to make a difference. You don't need 1 million followers. You just need to show up as you are, in your truth, in your wholeness, in your quiet, radiant knowing. Because the world doesn't change through noise. It changes through frequency. Through the vibration of people who have come home to themselves and are no longer afraid to be seen. You are one of those people. You are not here by accident. You are not too late. You are right on time. And the moment you fully own this, when you stop waiting for permission and start walking as if you already are the one you've been waiting for, everything shifts. You become the living proof, the embodiment of what is possible, the mirror that reflects back to others their own divinity. And that, beloved, is why you've endured so much. That is why you are one of the rare ones, not just to survive, but to awaken the world. You are the unveiling. You are the flame. You are the reason the darkness never won. Let it begin. In